The gunshot that killed Marcus Johnson on a dusty Tuesday morning in September 1881 was the same gunshot that should have made his daughter the richest woman in Oklahoma City. But instead, it made her the most hunted. Beatrice Johnson stood in her father's ranch house 3 days after they buried him, staring at a letter from the territorial court that informed her she had exactly 2 weeks to vacate the property because her uncle was contesting the will, and women, the letter coldly stated, were not fit to manage cattle operations of this magnitude. She crumpled the paper in her fist and threw it into the fireplace, watching the flames devour the words that threatened to devour her entire life. Her father had built this ranch from nothing, had carved it out of the Oklahoma Territory when it was still wild and dangerous, and he had left every acre, every head of cattle, every building and fence post to her in a will he had signed just 3 months before his death. But her uncle Raymond Johnson, her father's younger brother who had spent the last 20 years gambling and drinking his way through St. Louis, had returned the moment he heard about the inheritance, bringing with him a lawyer and a claim that Marcus had promised him the ranch years ago. The next morning, Beatrice rode into Oklahoma City with her father's will folded carefully in her saddlebag and determination burning in her chest like a prairie fire. The territorial courthouse stood at the center of town, a 2-story building that looked more permanent than most of the structures around it, as if the law itself demanded something solid in a place where everything else could blow away with the next dust storm. She tied her horse to the hitching post and climbed the steps, her boots echoing on the wooden planks. Inside, she found chaos. The clerk's office was crowded with men arguing over land claims, mining rights, and water access. She waited for nearly an hour before she could speak to anyone, and when she finally reached the desk, the clerk barely looked at her. "I need information about my father's will," she said, keeping her voice steady despite the anger rising in her throat. "Marcus Johnson, he died 10 days ago." The clerk shuffled through papers without much interest. "Johnson, right, your uncle filed a contest. Hearing is set for 2 weeks from yesterday. You will need legal representation." "Where do I find a lawyer?" The clerk finally looked up at her, and something like pity crossed his face. "Madam, I will be honest with you. Most lawyers in this territory are not going to take a case like yours. Women inheriting property, especially large ranches, it is not something the courts look favorably upon. And your uncle, he brought in Samuel Thornton from Kansas City. That man has never lost a case." Beatrice felt her stomach drop, but she kept her chin up. "There must be someone." "There is a fellow named Owen Kane," the clerk said slowly. "He is a cowboy mostly, works on the ranches around here, but he studied law back east before he came out here. He has represented a few folks in court, won some cases too, but I do not know if he would take on something like this." "Where can I find him?" "He works at the Triple Creek Ranch about 5 miles north of town. But madam, I should warn you, he is not exactly conventional. Some folks say he is too idealistic, that he cares more about what is right than what is profitable." "That sounds exactly like what I need," Beatrice said. She found Owen Kane that afternoon, working with a group of ranch hands to repair a section of fence that had been damaged in a recent storm. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that were an unusual shade of green. He wore dusty work clothes and a hat that had seen better days, and he moved with the easy confidence of a man who was comfortable in his own skin. When she rode up and asked for him by name, he straightened and wiped his hands on his pants, studying her with an expression that was both curious and cautious. "I am Owen Kane," he said. "What can I do for you? My name is Beatrice Johnson. My father owned the Bar J Ranch south of town." He died recently and left everything to me, but my uncle is contesting the will. I need someone to represent me in court." Owen's expression shifted, becoming more serious. "I heard about your father. I am sorry for your loss." Marcus Johnson was a good man, one of the few ranchers around here who treated his workers fairly. "Thank you," Beatrice said. "The clerk at the courthouse said you might be able to help me. He said you studied law." "I did," Owen said carefully. 3 years at a law school in Philadelphia before I decided I preferred open skies to closed courtrooms. But I still know the law, and I have represented people here when they needed it. What exactly is your uncle claiming?" Beatrice dismounted and pulled out the documents she had brought. Owen read through them quickly, his jaw tightening as he went. When he finished, he looked up at her with something fierce in his eyes. "This is garbage," he said bluntly. "Your father's will is clear and properly executed. Your uncle has no legal standing, just a fabricated story about a verbal promise. The only reason this is even going to court is because some judge thinks a woman should not own a ranch." "Will you help me?" Beatrice asked. Owen was quiet for a long moment, and she could see him weighing something in his mind. Finally, he nodded. "Yes, I will help you, but you need to understand this is not going to be easy. Samuel Thornton is a snake, and he knows how to play to a judge's prejudices. We are going to have to build a case that is absolutely airtight, and even then, there are no guarantees." "I understand," Beatrice said. "I just need someone who will fight for me." "Then you have got that," Owen said. He called out to the foreman that he needed to take some time off, then grabbed his horse. "Let us go to your ranch and go through your father's papers. If we are going to win this, we need every piece of evidence we can find." They rode together through the late afternoon sun, and as they traveled, Owen asked her questions about her father, about the ranch, about her relationship with her uncle. Beatrice found herself talking more freely than she had expected, telling him about growing up on the ranch, about learning to manage the cattle and the land from her father, about how her uncle had never shown any interest in the property until there was money involved. "Your father taught you the business?" Owen asked. "Everything," Beatrice said. "From the time I was 8 years old, I was riding with him, learning how to read the land, how to manage the herd, how to negotiate with buyers. He always said the ranch would be mine someday, that I had earned it." "That is what we need to prove," Owen said. "Not just that the will is valid, but that you are capable of running the ranch. If we can show the judge that you are already managing the operation successfully, it will be harder for him to rule against you." They spent the rest of the day at the Bar J Ranch, going through Marcus Johnson's records. Owen was thorough and methodical, examining every contract, every sale receipt, every note in Marcus's ledgers. He found letters from business partners praising the ranch's management, receipts showing steady profits, and most importantly, several documents where Marcus had explicitly stated his intention to leave everything to his daughter. As the sun set and the sky turned orange and purple, Owen sat back and rubbed his eyes. "This is good. This is really good. Your father kept excellent records and they tell a clear story, but we need more. We need witnesses who can testify to your competence, to your father's intentions, to your uncle's absence and lack of involvement." "The ranch hands all know me," Beatrice said. "The foreman, Jack Martinez, he has worked here for 15 years. The buyers we sell cattle to, they know I handle the negotiations." "Perfect," Owen said. "I will need to interview all of them, get statements, figure out who will be most effective in court. But Beatrice, you need to prepare yourself. Thornton is going to try to discredit you. He is going to paint you as emotional, incompetent, unsuited to business. He is going to bring up every mistake you have ever made and twist it into evidence that you cannot handle the responsibility. "I can handle whatever he throws at me," Beatrice said firmly. Owen looked at her across the table, and something shifted in his expression. "I believe you can," he said quietly. "You have got fire in you. I saw that the moment you rode up to the fence line." There was a moment of connection between them, something electric and unexpected, and Beatrice felt her breath catch. She barely knew this man, this cowboy lawyer who had agreed to help her without even asking about payment. But there was something about him that made her feel safe and seen in a way she had not felt since her father died. The next 2 weeks were a blur of preparation. Owen came to the ranch every day after he finished his work at Triple Creek, and they spent long evenings going over strategy, preparing her testimony, anticipating every argument Thornton might make. He interviewed the ranch hands and the buyers, took detailed notes, and drafted legal arguments that he read aloud to her, explaining each point until she understood the strategy. But they also talked about other things. Owen told her about growing up in Philadelphia, about his father who had wanted him to be a lawyer, and his mother who had wanted him to be anything that made him happy. He told her about realizing that he could not breathe in the city, that he needed space and sky, and the kind of freedom that only existed out west. He told her about the years he had spent working on different ranches, learning the land, finding a place where he finally felt like he belonged. Beatrice told him about her mother, who had died when she was 12, about how her father had never remarried because he said no one could replace the love of his life. She told him about the loneliness of being the only woman on a ranch full of men, about the way people in town looked at her like she was strange for preferring cattle to tea parties. She told him about her dreams for the ranch, about the improvements she wanted to make, the breed lines she wanted to develop. "You really love this place," Owen said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the stars come out. "It is everything to me," Beatrice said. "My father and I built this together. Every fence, every building, every decision about which cattle to buy or sell. Losing it would be like losing him all over again." Owen reached over and took her hand, and the touch sent warmth spreading through her entire body. "We are not going to lose it," he said. "I promise you, I will do everything in my power to make sure you get what is rightfully yours." The hearing was held on a Wednesday morning in early October. The courtroom was packed with people, some there for other cases, some there just to watch the spectacle of a woman fighting for her inheritance. Beatrice sat at the defendant's table with Owen beside her, trying to calm the nervous flutter in her stomach. Across the aisle, her uncle Raymond sat with Samuel Thornton, looking smug and confident. The judge was a man named Albert Henderson, a territorial appointee who was known for his conservative views and his skepticism of what he called modern notions. He called the court to order and asked Thornton to present his case. Thornton stood and launched into his argument with the practiced ease of a man who had done this 100 times before. He painted Marcus Johnson as a man who had always intended to leave the ranch to his brother, who had only changed his will under pressure from a manipulative daughter who had taken advantage of him in his final days. He suggested that Beatrice was too young, too inexperienced, too emotional to manage a property of this size. He brought up 2 minor business disputes from the previous year and twisted them into evidence of incompetence. "Your Honor," Thornton said, his voice dripping with false sincerity, "this is not about denying this young woman her father's love or her rightful place in his life. This is about what is best for the property, for the workers who depend on it, for the economic stability of this territory. A ranch of this size requires a firm hand, business acumen, and the kind of authority that, frankly, a young woman simply cannot command. Raymond Johnson is prepared to take on this responsibility, to honor his brother's true wishes, and to ensure that the Bar J Ranch continues to thrive. When Thornton sat down, Owen stood. He was dressed in a suit that Beatrice had never seen him wear before, and he looked every bit the lawyer he had trained to be. But there was something else in his bearing, something that combined his legal knowledge with the strength and directness he had learned in the years since he left Philadelphia. "Your Honor," Owen began, his voice clear and strong, "this case is actually very simple. Marcus Johnson left a will that is legally valid, properly executed, and completely clear in its intentions. He left everything to his daughter because she earned it. Not because she manipulated him, not because she took advantage of him, but because she spent her entire life learning this business from the ground up and proving herself capable of running it." Owen laid out the evidence systematically. He presented the will, and the documents showing it had been properly witnessed and filed. He presented Marcus's business records showing years of Beatrice's involvement in major decisions. He presented letters from buyers praising her negotiating skills. He called Jack Martinez to the stand, and the foreman testified about Beatrice's competence, her dedication, and her father's explicit statements about wanting her to inherit. "Marcus Johnson told me at least a dozen times over the years that his daughter would run the ranch when he was gone," Martinez said. "He was proud of her. He believed in her. And she has been running things since he got sick anyway. The ranch has not missed a beat." Owen called 2 more witnesses, both business partners who confirmed that they considered Beatrice the true operator of the Bar J Ranch and had no concerns about continuing to do business with her. Then he called Beatrice herself to the stand. "Miss Johnson," Owen said, "how long have you been involved in the management of the Bar J Ranch?" "Since I was a child," Beatrice said. "My father started teaching me when I was 8 years old. By the time I was 15, I was helping with major decisions. For the last 5 years, I have been managing most of the day-to-day operations. And when your father became ill, what happened? I took over completely. I managed the spring roundup, negotiated the sale of 600 head of cattle, hired 3 new ranch hands, and oversaw repairs to the north pasture fencing. Everything continued to run smoothly. Did your father ever express any doubt about your ability to run the ranch?" "No. He told me repeatedly that I was ready, that the ranch was mine, that he trusted me completely." When Thornton cross-examined her, he tried to rattle her, asking aggressive questions about the business disputes he had mentioned, about her lack of formal education, about whether she truly believed a woman could command the respect of ranch hands and business partners. But Beatrice answered each question calmly and confidently, refusing to be intimidated. "Mr. Thornton," she said at one point, "I have been commanding the respect of ranch hands since I was 16 years old. Not because I am loud or aggressive, but because I know what I am doing and I treat people fairly. That is what my father taught me, and that is how I run the Bar J Ranch." The courtroom was silent when she finished, and Beatrice could see several people nodding in approval. Owen caught her eye as she returned to her seat, and the pride in his expression made her heart swell. Finally, Owen stood for his closing argument. He walked to the center of the courtroom and looked directly at the judge. "Your Honor, I know there are people who believe that women are not suited to business, that they are too emotional, too weak, too irrational to handle the responsibilities of property ownership. But beliefs are not facts and prejudice is not law. The facts in this case are clear. Marcus Johnson left a valid will. Beatrice Johnson is competent and capable, and Raymond Johnson has no legitimate claim beyond his own greed." Owen's voice grew stronger, more passionate. "This woman deserves justice. She deserves to inherit what her father left her, what she earned through years of hard work and dedication. She deserves to be judged on her actual abilities, not on assumptions about her gender. And this court deserves to make a decision based on law and evidence, not on outdated notions about what women can or cannot do. He paused, letting his words sink in. Your Honor, if you rule against Beatrice Johnson, you are not protecting the ranch or honoring Marcus Johnson's true wishes. You are simply taking property from someone who earned it and giving it to someone who wants it. That is not justice. That is theft with a legal stamp on it. I am asking you, pleading with you to look at the evidence, follow the law, and do what is right. Uphold this will. Let Beatrice Johnson keep what is rightfully hers. The courtroom was completely silent when Owen sat down. Judge Henderson stared at the papers in front of him for a long moment, then looked up at the assembled crowd. I will take this matter under advisement, he said. I will issue my ruling in 3 days. Court is adjourned. The wait was agonizing. Beatrice tried to keep herself busy at the ranch, but she could not focus on anything. Owen came by each evening and they sat together on the porch, not talking much, just being present for each other. On the second night, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of red and gold, Owen took her hand again. Whatever happens, he said quietly, I want you to know that I have never met anyone like you. You are brave and strong and absolutely remarkable. Beatrice turned to look at him, and the emotion in his eyes took her breath away. Owen, I do not know what I would have done without you. You did not have to help me. You barely knew me, but you stood up for me anyway. I stood up for you because it was right, Owen said. But I am here now because somewhere in the middle of all of this, I fell in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, precious and terrifying. Beatrice felt tears prick at her eyes. I fell in love with you too, she whispered. I did not mean to, I did not plan on it, but I did. Owen pulled her close and kissed her, and it was like coming home to a place she had never been before. She melted into him, feeling safe and cherished and completely understood in a way she had never experienced. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. If we win this case, Owen said, I want to stay. I want to help you run the ranch. I want to build a life with you. And if we lose, Beatrice asked. Then we will figure something else out together, Owen said firmly, because I am not losing you no matter what happens. On the third day, they rode into Oklahoma City together and walked into the courthouse hand in hand. The courtroom filled quickly, and Judge Henderson took his seat exactly at 9 o'clock. He looked tired, and Beatrice wondered if he had slept much in the last 3 days. I have reviewed all the evidence and testimony in this matter, the judge said, and I have wrestled with this decision considerably. There are strong arguments on both sides, and I am aware that my ruling will be controversial no matter which way I decide. Beatrice felt Owen's hand tighten around hers. However, the judge continued, the law is clear. A properly executed will must be honored unless there is compelling evidence of fraud, coercion, or incompetence. I have seen no such evidence here. What I have seen is a young woman who has been trained in business, who has demonstrated competence, and who has the support of the people who actually work with her. While I personally have reservations about women managing large properties, my personal feelings are not the law. He paused and looked directly at Beatrice. Therefore, I am ruling in favor of the defendant. The will of Marcus Johnson is upheld. Beatrice Johnson is the rightful owner of the Bar J Ranch and all its assets. Raymond Johnson's claim is denied. The courtroom erupted in noise, some people cheering, others grumbling. Beatrice felt tears streaming down her face, and she turned to Owen, who pulled her into his arms. You did it, he said into her hair. We did it. No, Beatrice said, pulling back to look at him. You did it. You stood in court and defended my right to inherit. You said I deserved justice and you made them listen." Raymond Johnson stormed out of the courtroom without looking at her, Thornton close behind him. Beatrice watched them go and felt nothing but relief. She had won. The ranch was hers. Her father's legacy was secure. Outside the courthouse, Owen stopped her before they reached their horses. "I meant what I said the other night. I want to be with you, Beatrice. I want to help you build that ranch into something even greater than it already is, if you will have me." "If I will have you," Beatrice laughed, the sound bright with joy and relief. "Owen Kane, I would be honored to have you, to build a life with you, to make you a partner in every sense of the word." "Then I have one more question," Owen said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a simple gold ring. "I bought this yesterday, probably too soon, probably presumptuous as hell, but I do not care. Beatrice Johnson, will you marry me?" "Yes," Beatrice said without hesitation. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her right there in the street, and Beatrice did not care who was watching. She had won her inheritance, found the love of her life, and secured her future, all in one miraculous moment. They were married 3 weeks later in a small ceremony at the ranch, with Jack Martinez standing up as Owen's best man, and the ranch hands forming an enthusiastic audience. Beatrice wore her mother's wedding dress, altered to fit her, and Owen wore a new suit that made him look both handsome and slightly uncomfortable. The circuit preacher pronounced them husband and wife, and they celebrated with a feast that lasted well into the evening. Owen moved into the ranch house that night, and together they began to build the life they had imagined. Owen proved to be an excellent partner in every way. He had a natural head for business and a deep respect for the land that matched Beatrice's own. Together, they implemented the improvements she had dreamed of, expanding the herd, improving the breeding lines, and building the Bar J Ranch into one of the most successful operations in Oklahoma Territory. But it was not always easy. That first year, they faced a harsh winter that killed 30 head of cattle and damaged 2 barns. They faced neighbors who still believed a woman had no business running a ranch and who tried to exclude them from the local cattlemen's association. They faced the challenge of learning to work together, to combine their different styles and strengths into a true partnership. Through it all, they learned to lean on each other. When Beatrice felt overwhelmed by the responsibilities, Owen reminded her of her strength and capability. When Owen struggled with the transition from being a ranch hand to being a co-owner, Beatrice reminded him that he had earned his place beside her. They learned to communicate, to fight fair, to make decisions together, and to always come back to the love that had brought them together in the first place. In the spring of 1883, Beatrice discovered she was pregnant. She was terrified at first, worried that having a child would somehow diminish her ability to run the ranch, that people would use it as proof that she should not have been managing property in the first place. But Owen held her and told her that she could be both a mother and a rancher, that there was no rule saying she had to choose. "We will figure it out together," he said, "just like we figure out everything else." Their son was born in December, right after the first snow. They named him Marcus, after Beatrice's father, and he came into the world howling with rage and demanding attention. Beatrice fell in love with him instantly, marveling at his tiny fingers and the way he looked at her with eyes that were already showing hints of Owen's green. Owen was a devoted father from the start. He fashioned a crib with his own hands, carved toys, and spent hours walking the floor with Marcus when he would not sleep. He also insisted that Beatrice not give up her role in managing the ranch, hiring additional help so she could balance both responsibilities. "This is your dream," he told her when she worried about being away from Marcus too much. And our son is going to grow up knowing that his mother is strong and capable and runs one of the best ranches in the territory. That is a gift you are giving him." As Marcus grew from a baby to a toddler to a curious little boy, he became a fixture around the ranch. He learned to ride almost before he could walk, sitting in front of Owen on a gentle mare. He followed his mother around, asking endless questions about the cattle and the land. He charmed the ranch hands with his enthusiasm and his tendency to imitate everything the adults did. In 1886, Beatrice gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Sarah. She was quieter than Marcus had been, more observant but no less determined. From the time she could toddle, she insisted on going everywhere her mother went, and by the time she was 5, she could already help with simple ranch tasks. The Bar J Ranch continued to prosper. Owen and Beatrice became known throughout Oklahoma Territory as fair employers and skilled ranchers. They treated their workers well, paid decent wages, and created a culture of respect that was unusual for the time. Other ranchers began to seek their advice, and Beatrice found herself becoming something of an advocate for other women who wanted to be involved in business. In 1889, when rumors began circulating about Oklahoma Territory becoming a state, Owen and Beatrice were invited to participate in discussions about the future. Beatrice spoke passionately about the need for laws that protected property rights for women, for education opportunities, for building a society that valued capability over gender. "I would not be standing here if one judge had not been willing to look past his prejudices and rule on the law," she said at one meeting. "But we cannot depend on the conscience of individual judges. We need laws that are clear and fair, that give everyone the same opportunities." Owen stood beside her through all of it, proud of her voice and her courage, still willing to fight for what was right even when it was not popular. As the years passed, their love only deepened. They learned each other's rhythms, the way Owen liked his coffee in the morning, the way Beatrice needed silence sometimes to think through a problem. They learned to read each other's moods, to know when the other needed support or space or just a hand to hold. They built a life that was rich not just in material success, but in genuine partnership and deep affection. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Owen took Beatrice to the spot where they had first kissed, that porch overlooking the ranch her father had built. The children were with Jack Martinez and his wife for the evening, and they had the house to themselves. 10 years, Owen said, pulling her close. 10 years of waking up beside you, working beside you, building this life beside you. I would not change a single day, not even the hard days. Beatrice asked with a smile. "Especially not the hard days," Owen said, "because those are the days that proved we could get through anything together." They stood there watching the sunset, the same colors painting the sky that had been there the night Owen first told her he loved her. The ranch spread out before them, testament to everything they had built together, and in the house behind them, the sounds of their children's laughter echoed through the rooms. "You ever think about that day in court?" Beatrice asked. "About how different everything could have been if the judge had ruled the other way?" "Sometimes," Owen admitted, "but I think we would have found our way to each other anyway. Maybe not here, maybe not with this ranch, but somehow. Because what we have, Beatrice, it is bigger than property or money or even justice. It is love, real and true and lasting." "You are right," Beatrice said, leaning into him. "And I am grateful every day that you walked into my life when you did. That you were willing to fight for me when no one else would." "I did not fight for you because you needed saving," Owen said. "I fought for you because you deserved justice, and I fell in love with you because you are extraordinary. Those are two different things, but I am grateful for both." They stood there as the stars came out, the same stars that had witnessed their first kiss, their wedding vows, the birth of their children, and every moment of joy and struggle in between. The ranch was quiet except for the sounds of cattle settling for the night and the wind moving through the grass. In 1893, Beatrice gave birth to their third child, another son they named Thomas. He was a surprise, coming along when Marcus was already 10 and Sarah was 7, but he was welcomed with joy. Marcus took his role as big brother seriously, teaching Thomas to ride and helping him learn the ranch the same way he had learned it. Sarah, meanwhile, showed a talent for the business side of ranching that surprised even Beatrice. By the time she was 12, she was helping keep the books, and by 15, she was negotiating with buyers with a shrewdness that made Owen laugh. "She is just like her mother," he would say proudly. Smart, tough, and absolutely impossible to swindle. As Oklahoma Territory moved toward statehood, the Bar J Ranch became even more successful. Owen and Beatrice expanded their operations, buying adjacent land when it became available, always treating it with the same respect and care they had learned from Marcus Johnson. They employed over 20 people full-time, and during roundup season, that number doubled. But success never made them forget where they had started. Every year on the anniversary of the court ruling, they would gather the family and tell the story of how they met, how Owen had stood up in court and demanded justice, how the judge had ruled in favor of what was right instead of what was traditional. "Your mother earned everything she has," Owen would tell the children. "And she taught me that courage is not about never being afraid. It is about doing what is right even when you are terrified." "And your father taught me," Beatrice would add, "that there are still good people in the world who will stand up for justice, even when they do not have to, even when it is not easy." In 1907, when Oklahoma officially became a state, Owen and Beatrice celebrated with the rest of the territory. They were in their 40s now, their children nearly grown, the ranch more successful than Marcus Johnson could have ever imagined. They had weathered droughts and economic downturns, personal losses and professional challenges, but they had done it together. Marcus Jr., at 24, was running much of the day-to-day ranch operations now, showing the same dedication and skill his grandfather and parents had demonstrated. Sarah, at 21, had shocked everyone by announcing she wanted to go to college to study agriculture and business. Owen and Beatrice had supported her completely, proud of her ambition and her desire to bring new knowledge back to the ranch. Thomas, at 14, was still figuring out his path, but he had inherited his father's sense of justice and his mother's determination. He talked about maybe becoming a lawyer someday, about using the law to help people the way his father had helped his mother. On a warm evening in May 1908, Owen and Beatrice sat on their porch, the same porch where they had shared so many important moments. They were older now, their hair showing silver, their hands showing the marks of years of hard work, but their love was as strong as it had ever been. "Do you ever regret it?" Beatrice asked. "Giving up the law to be a rancher?" "Never," Owen said firmly. "I found my calling that day you rode up to the fence line, not in practicing law, but in standing up for what is right and in building a life with you. That is worth more than any legal career could have ever been." "I was so scared that day," Beatrice admitted. "Scared of losing everything, scared that no one would help me, scared that my father's dream would die with him. And then you said yes. You barely knew me, but you said yes." "I said yes because it was the right thing to do," Owen said. "But I stayed because I fell in love with you." "Best decision I ever made." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the ranch they had built together. In the distance, they could see Marcus Jr. working with some of the hands, Sarah's room light was on as she studied for her exams, and Thomas was in the barn tending to a horse that had been injured. "We did good," Beatrice said softly. "We built something that matters. Not just the ranch, but a family, a legacy, a place where people are treated fairly and judged on their abilities." "We did," Owen agreed. "And it all started because your father believed in you, and because a territorial judge was willing to look past his prejudices long enough to see the truth. And because a cowboy decided to become a lawyer for a day," Beatrice added with a smile. "For you, I would do it again in a heartbeat," Owen said. He took her hand, the same hand he had held in that courtroom 27 years ago. "This woman deserves justice," I said, "and you did. You deserved it then, and you deserve every good thing that has come since." "We deserve it," Beatrice corrected, "because we built this together. Every fence, every decision, every challenge overcome, together." As the stars came out and the ranch settled into its evening quiet, they remained on the porch, hands linked, hearts united, grateful for the love they had found in the midst of a fight for justice. The Bar J Ranch would continue for generations, a testament to one man's belief in equality, one woman's determination to claim what was rightfully hers, and the love that had grown between them in the process. Their story would be told and retold, becoming part of Oklahoma legend, a reminder that justice and love could triumph over prejudice and greed. And every time someone told the story, they would remember Owen Kane standing in that courtroom, his voice strong and clear, saying the words that changed everything. "This woman deserves justice." Those words had given Beatrice her inheritance, but more importantly, they had given her a partner, a love story, and a life beyond anything she could have imagined on that desperate day when she first rode to Triple Creek Ranch looking for help. The ranch prospered, the family grew, and through it all, the love between a cowboy and the woman he fought for remained the foundation of everything they built.